Hello, today I'm going to show you all the things you need to know when debugging your program in Eclipse. Let's get started. Okay, so let's say that you wrote your Java program and something does not work as you expected, but you also cannot find the error simply by just looking at your code. So what do? You start with an activity called debugging, which is defined as the process of identifying and removing errors from computer software. This process involves placing special marks in your code called breakpoints, which stop the execution of your program and allow you to see its state at this exact moment. Now let me show you how this is used in practice. As you can see, I have prepared a simple program that I will use as example, but please do not bother with understanding the logic behind it because it will not be important for this tutorial. As you may already know, you can run this program by going to Run and then clicking Run or pressing Ctrl F11. And if you do this, you will see that the program executes, and when it is completed, it immediately terminates. The same happens when you try to debug your program, so if you go to Run and then click Debug or press F11, you will see that the program executes the same as before. Now watch what happens if I add a breakpoint to this code by simply double-clicking on this area before line numbers, so like so, and then go to Run and Debug. The first thing you will notice is that Eclipse prompts for perspective switch, which basically provides different views that are more suitable for debugging. So click on Remember My Decision and then click Switch. You see that the view is now changed, and you can also see that the program is waiting at this breakpoint and it's not terminated yet. This means that we can now see the program state at this exact point, and if you look at the variable step, you will see that at this point we have variables A and B known. Variable A has value 11 because it was initialized and then incremented before this point, but variable B has value 20 because it was only initialized but not yet decremented at this point. You can see that we have also variable C and some age defined, but they are not present under variables step because they are after this breakpoint and we didn't reach them yet. Now the first thing I want to explain is the breakpoint navigation. There are basically 3 breakpoint navigations that you need to know. The first one is the simplest one, and it is used for executing program line by line. You can do this by clicking this icon here which says Step Over, or you can also press F6, and if you do this, you will see that the program executes line by line. Now that we have reached this point, you can also see that variables C and some age are also present under variable step. If you want to execute the program to the end or till the next breakpoint, you can just simply click on this resume icon here, or you can also press F8. If I press this icon, you will see that the program executed and it is now terminated. As you may notice, when we debugged this program and executed it line by line, we skipped all the lines inside this SUMH method, and so we didn't have a chance to debug them. So if we want to do this, we have to use another navigation, which is called Step Into Navigation. If I now debug this program again, and then go to the line where this method is called, and now press Step Into or F5, you will see that the execution continues in the first line in this method. Now I can simply debug the lines inside this method the same as I did before, so by pressing F6, and you will notice that when we reach the end of the method and then press F6 again, you will see that the execution now continues at the place where we initially called this method. And now I can just keep pressing F6 to debug the program the same as we did before. At this point, you now know how to use the 2 most common navigations, so Step Over and Step Into navigation. And the last I want to show you is the Step Return navigation, but this will be only enabled if we first use the Step Into navigation. If I now debug this program again, and then reach the point at which SUMH is called, and then press F5 to step into it, you will see that now the step return navigation is enabled, and if I click it or press F7, you will see that now the execution goes back to the place where we call this method. So this is similar as before when we executed the line by pressing F6 and then reaching the end of this method. But when you press F7, the execution will immediately go back to the caller position and will not execute any other line after the position where the F7 was pressed. Okay, now that you know the navigation basics, let me show you how to debug a program even faster with setting multiple breakpoints. Let's say that you want to quickly debug a program at specific line, and you can do this by setting another breakpoint. For example, we will set it at line 25, and we can do this by double-clicking, the same as we did for the first breakpoint. And if you now debug the program, you will see that the execution first stops at the first breakpoint, and if you click Resume or press F8, you will see that the execution continues to the next breakpoint. And if I press F8 again, the program will terminate because we don't have any other breakpoint. Another way of reaching a specific line in the program is by first going to debug mode and then selecting the line you want to go to, for example 28, and then go to Run and then select Run to Line, or you can also use keyboard shortcut Ctrl-R, and you will see that execution goes to the selected line. Okay, that's all I wanted to tell you about navigation, so let's now go to the next section, which will be variables.
By the way, if you are getting some value out of this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.
As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, we have a list of all variables under Variables tab that are known at the specific execution point, and we also have all of their current values. You can also simply check the variable value by simply hovering its name. So for example, if I hover A, you will see value 10, and if I hover B, you will see value 20. Now see what happens when I go to the next line by pressing F6. You will see that the value of A has changed to 11 and also that the background changed to yellow color. And if I press F6 again, the B was changed and also the background is now yellow. This means that all variables that their value changed at the specific point are marked as yellow, so you can quickly see them. If I now hover the variable A or B, you will see that this view also shows the current value of the variable and not the initialized value. Okay, those were different ways of displaying variable values, but you can also change them while debugging. You can do this by simply right-clicking on the variable and then selecting Change Value, and you can enter a new value here. Or you can also click on the Value column and then change the value and then press Enter. If I now step over, you will see that the variable C, which is the sum of A and B, is now 39. So that means that this variable has already taken into the account the changed value of variable A. Okay, now that you know how to read and change variable values, let's go to the next section, which will be breakpoint properties. So if you click under Breakpoints tab, you will see the list of all breakpoints that you have added to a program. So for example, we have one at line 7 and another one at line 13. And you can also see this information here. You can also see that they are both present under main method. So for example, if we add another one, it is also added to the list, and you can see that it is present under SUMH method. From here you can quickly enable or disable certain breakpoints by simply clicking this checkbox in front of each breakpoint. So for example, if I click on the second checkbox, you can see that the breakpoint at line 13 is now disabled. So it will be ignored, and that means that the program will not stop at this point. Instead of disabling the breakpoint, you can also remove it. So you can do this by right-clicking and then selecting Remove, or by clicking on this icon here, and you will see that it disappears. You can also disable or remove all of the breakpoints at once, and you can do this by right-clicking on this white area and then selecting Disable All or Remove All. And for this option, you can also click on this icon here. And if we do this, you will see that Eclipse prompts for removing all breakpoints. and if we click remove, all of the breakpoints disappear. If I now add another breakpoint, you will see that each breakpoint has certain properties that you can enable by simply clicking this checkbox here, and now I will explain what each of them means. The first property is trigger point property, and that means that this breakpoint will act as a trigger for another breakpoints. Let me show you this on a simple example. So if I add another breakpoint before trigger and then another one after the trigger and then debug the program, you will see that the execution stops at this trigger. So this first breakpoint was ignored. And if I then click on the resume, you will see that the execution stopped at the next breakpoint. Simply put, that means that all of the breakpoints after this trigger will be executed, but only if this trigger will also be executed. Okay, now let's go to the second property, which is hit count property. But first, let me stop this program and remove all of the breakpoints. If I now add another breakpoint and then select this hit count property, this means that the execution of the program will stop at this breakpoint only if this breakpoint will be reached certain amount of times. So for example, if I put 1 under hit count and then debug the program, you will see that it stopped under this point because breakpoint was hit only once. So let me resume this and then change this to 2 and then let us debug this program again, and you will see that it was terminated immediately because this breakpoint was not hit twice but only once. Normally we use these hit count properties for loops, so now I will show you another example on this for loop that we have here. Let's say that you want to stop the program when the breakpoint inside for loop was reached 10 times. So I will add another breakpoint inside this for loop and then change the hit count to 10 and then debug the program. And you can see that the program stopped in the middle of the for loop because it only printed the number still value 108. But if we didn't set this breakpoint, it would print the number still value 119. So if I now resume the program, you will see that it now prints the remaining numbers. Okay, and the last property I want to show you is the conditional property, and I will also use this for loop as an example. As the name conditional suggests, this property allows you to enter a specific condition that will stop a program, and if you also have this suspend when true option checked, then the program will stop when this condition will be true. So if I enter a simple condition, for example I equals 115, and then debug the program, you will see that it also stopped at the middle of the for loop. And if we check the variable step, you can see that the variable I has the value of 115. And if I now press the resume button, the program will print the remaining numbers the same as before. Okay, now that you know how to use breakpoint properties, let me explain you the last section of this tutorial, which will be expressions. For now, we have observed only the values of single variables, but sometimes you may want to know the value of multiple variables that can be written as an expression. Let me show you how. If I first debug a program, you now know that at this point we have values of variable A and B known. This means that I can now use these variables in an expression. So if I click on this plus icon and then put, for example, A minus B and then press enter, you will see that the value of this expression was immediately calculated. This also means that the value of this expression will change if any of the variables A and B change during the debugging process. Now let me show you another example of an expression that will use a variable that is not yet known at the breakpoint position. So if I now add another expression, for example A plus B plus C, and then hit enter, you will see that we get an error during the evaluation. That's because variable C is not yet known at this point, but if I step over just one step, it is now known. And you will also see that the expression is now calculated without any errors. And also, as before, the value of this expression will change if any of the variables a, b, or c changes. Now that you know how to use expressions, let me show you how to quickly check a value of expressions that are already present in your code. So for example, if we want to check a value of expression a plus b, we can just select it and then drag and drop it to the expressions tab. Instead of drag and dropping, you can also select the expression and then right-click it and then select Watch Menu, and you will see that this expression is also added to the Expressions tab. Please note that you can also use methods inside expressions. So for example, if I select this method and then drag and drop it here, you can see that we have its return value printed. If you want to remove an expression, you can right-click it and then select Remove, or you can also press the Delete key. And if you want to remove all expressions at once, you can right-click on this white area and then select Remove All, or you can also click this icon right here. And if we click it, all expressions are gone. Okay, that's it. You have now reached the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you found this video valuable, please subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next one.